Previously on No Reserves Radio.
Oh my God, Angelo! Come on, have some self-respect. The Eagles can't hurt you if you don't constantly pander to them.
Here's the biggest indictment of Dame that I can say. Dame has been so off this year that Ren went on live air and said Jalen Brunson deserved an all-star start over him.
You are now Angelo Dudululo.
Do you think it is possible that the management of the Memphis Grizzlies are just buying into the reckless youth movement and they got rid of the one person in the locker room that probably was telling Ja to knock it off?
Because he's taken advantage of me multiple times when I was younger. That sounded bad. Holy shit.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you're correct in that assessment.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of No Reserves Radio. I'm your host, Angelo. With me, as always, is Alex. Alex, time for you to rant, buddy.
What a beautiful Wednesday that we're doing this on. The 13th of November. What's going on, guys? What's going on, Angelo?
He's
And the
dating the day. Oh, no.
The 13th of November
The day.
is going to be marked on a lot of calendars as the day, in 2024 that is, as the day that the Colts came back to their senses. So it's truly an happy day. I mean, they're back to their senses. They have finally looked at what they've been doing the past few weeks. So Joe Flacco got 2 weeks as a starter, and it's like they look at those weeks, lost both weeks, offense has done nothing, and the coach yesterday came into the media and said, you know what? Yesterday was Tuesday, by the way. He went out on the media and said, you know what? Joe Flacco is still our starter. And the outrage, I was checking up Colts Reddit because best news source. Yeah, I just go. You go to Bears Reddit, you go to Colts Reddit, you go to the Cowboys Reddit. The Cowboys Reddit is for a different reason. It's more like for the salt, that you get from the guys that always think that it's their year. Although I'll say that Cowboys Twitter Reddit, that is probably a bit more like down to earth. They don't think they will win every single year. But they still think we're going to have 10, 11, 12 wins. And it's just it's good for some of those people to finally come down to earth. And it's your team is shit. But I do the Colts and the Bears one purely because I do care about those teams because they have QBs that I like. So I like those teams naturally.
Yeah.
And there was a complete outrage as to why Flacco was still starting. People were saying they were going to stop watching the Colts because it doesn't even matter.
The better quarterback was in?
No, because they're starting a 4-year-old that has absolutely no chance of being their starter next year. So they are in purgatory essentially. They can't even watch a guy that is actually has some potential. So it's what's the point? They're losing the offense. I don't know how he's the better QB in that team, yet the offense is exactly the same. But he can't run and he doesn't get wins. So I need you to explain me how that is a better QB.
So odd. So the offense is exactly the same, but the quarterback can't run. That's weird. It's almost like the rushing upside is the attraction, and he can't throw very well outside of the big plays, Alex.
But I'm told that Joe Flacco can throw, and Richardson is doing similar enough numbers, right? So, can he actually throw then?
Yeah.
I know you want to throw that into a Justin Fields comparison, but I need you to stop that because, again, Anthony Richardson has 10 games under his belt. Fields has 3 seasons. And he still looks like a doofus whenever he needs to throw an actual football and not just run it. So
Okay.
I need those comparisons to kind of stop. But it's good that the Colts have finally opened their eyes, and Waldron came in today and he said that Richardson is going to be the starter for the rest of the season. So maybe it was just like, I don't know, Richardson had those unfortunate comments to the media and he had to pay the price some way, somehow. And he got benched 2 games. He's going to learn now, and he's going to be back, and he won't say that stuff to the media anymore, hopefully. So yeah, he's back. The dumb fucks weren't in there longer. Now they're still in there, and eventually, I'm kind of afraid that they will be back. But the common sense prevailed here, and the former
Was
fourth
it
round
common
pick.
sense though?
Are you, why? I need your argument on why Joe Flacco should be the starter the rest of the year, because there really isn't one.
I mean, sure there is.
What is it?
The coach wants to keep his job.
So he starts a QB that lost him the 2 games, and the offense looks inept.
No, he starts in the QB he thinks has a better chance of getting him wins.
Well, yeah, but like Anthony Richardson actually got you wins. Flacco got you 2 straight losses as a starter since coming in from for Richardson, and like the losses, like for example, you can look at Richardson's losses, and he has 2 losses versus the Texans, who are very close in terms of like final score. You look at Flacco's losses, and it's like the team isn't even trying. It seems like they were down massively versus the Bills, almost for the entirety of the game. Like, if I'm not mistaken, they were down going into the fourth quarter, or in the fourth quarter, they were down like 30-13, for example. The game before it was even worse. So it's like, I don't think that's how you keep your job,
The game
losing games like that.
losing games like that.
Yeah.
Homie, they lost to their last 3 losses have been to the Texans, the Vikings, and the Bills. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are all of those teams not like top 3 seed teams or contenders to be?
Yeah, top
Weren't
three.
we
I don't
just
think so
weren't we just
because the
arguing
Vikings
about
aren't.
weren't you just arguing that just a few weeks ago that the Vikings defense is the best defense in the NFL and maybe one of the best defenses we've seen?
Yes, that is still true. However, it's like you
So
lost those
weird.
games, but it's
So
how
weird.
you lost those
So
games.
so so weird. It's so weird that you said that the offense isn't playing similar under Joe Flacco, except they're playing a lot better defenses now, and they weren't before Joe Flacco played. And the offense is giving you similar productions. It's really weird. It's almost as if Joe Flacco against elite defenses is performing the same as Anthony Richardson against bad defenses. I wonder why you would want to put the quarterback in who is giving you similar production against the better defenses. Huh. I just can't figure it
It's
out, Alex. I mean, I can't figure it out. Tell me.
I don't necessarily think that, for example, the Green Bay Packers, who Anthony Richardson faced on week 2, have a worse defense than, for example, the Bills, or even the who did they face? Like the
Scored more points against they scored more points against the Bills than they did the Packers. Double. If you want to be technical, double.
Yes, sure. I'll give you that, but I'm just saying in terms of defenses, they've actually like they Richardson actually faced some tough defenses as well. So it's not like he faced cupcakes. He faced the Chicago Bears. He faced the Pittsburgh Steelers. Started that game. Then he got hurt in that game. I mean, if you want to talk about facing bad defenses, Flacco faced the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's like you can't get much easier than that. I guess that's
They put
probably
up 34 points. He threw
yeah. It's
three
versus the Jags.
touchdowns.
It's versus the Jags.
Right, but he's performing against. But here's the thing: he's performing against the bad defenses, and he's also giving you, I'd say, fairly respectable offenses against the good defenses.
I
So,
need you
like,
to tell me what's a respectable offense when the offense scored 0 points versus Minnesota, for example. The special team scored 6 points and they got a pick six.
I'm just saying the guy who only mustered 16 points against the Miami Dolphins paper thin defense versus someone
So
who's
so
going to give you 20 against
so
the Bills,
the
and then
Rams
when
the
it's
Rams
as bad as the Dolphins, he's going to give you 30.
Okay.
I'm
So
just
you're telling me that the guy that faced the Miami Dolphins, right? The guy that only got 16 points versus the Dolphins.
yeah.
So that guy is probably better than the guy who got 15 points versus the Dolphins on Monday Night Football this past week, right? I'm just making it clear because the paper team, quote unquote, Miami Dolphins defense just managed to hold out Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Matthew Stafford to 15 points. But getting 16 is a slight. I'm just trying to figure this out. Is that what you're saying? So you're saying that Anthony Richardson is actually better QB than Matthew Stafford? Because I want the audience to know, Angelo, that you're actually
But here's the
agreeing with me on
thing.
something here.
But here's the double whammy. The Dolphins had Tua. So yes, Matthew Stafford lost against the Dolphins, but they also had Tua. Anthony Richardson scored 16 points against the Dolphins while facing Tim Boyle and Tyler Huntley. So I'm
Does Tim
sorry, it's
Boyle
just not the
And Tyler
same. It's just not the same.
is Tim Boyle and Tyler Huntley playing on defense? Because their defense is the same. Like the offense might not be able to muster a whole lot. And actually
You
versus
know that
the
stop it. You know that argument is disingenuous because you understand enough about football to understand that the tempo the other offense does also can dictate the tempo and pace you want to run your own offense. So yes, when you're facing Tyler Huntley and fucking Tim Boyle, the pressure isn't as on as it is when you're facing Tua Tagovailoa. Get out of here with that.
Okay, so we're saying that although Tua made a whole lot of mistakes in terms of turnovers, like if I'm not mistaken, he turned the ball over more than what Tyler Huntley did. So like the offense was still not a juggernaut. They only scored 23 points. Sure, they only scored 10 versus the Colts when they faced, but it's still like the defense is still good enough, even though like they're being on the field more because of more three and outs that the offense is giving to the Colts. But it's like it feels like what you're saying is that there's always going to be something against Richardson. It's like if he scores points and he beats a team, then he didn't score enough, or like the team that he faced wasn't good enough, or like we're not even giving him credit for example, going toe to toe with the Houston Texans, for example, which apparently is still the NFL's darling. Plenty of places still have them as a top 10 team, apparently we're not giving them credit for, especially at the start of the year when the defense was really playing badly. He went toe to toe with the Texans. He was like a point away from getting a tie out of that game. It's like you take all of that, plus you have the upside on this guy that is still massive. He has 10 games. I repeat, 10 games under his belt as a pro. He has what around 15 games in college at the college level. So the upside here is still massive. He was the fourth overall pick. He is the youngest QB in the league, tied with, if I'm not mistaken, Caleb Williams. And you're wrapping all of that, you're throwing that away, and you're starting Joe Flacco because you think your job is safer that way. The job is safer with a vet, like a 40-year-old vet.
NFL coaches is a pussy position. You play the players that makes it more likely that you have a paycheck at the end of at the start of next season. That's reality. You don't take risks like that as an NFL coach. You should understand that, and you should
I
realize
just,
that is definitely the case.
I just
So
don't
yes,
think that, like, imagine you go to your boss's office. Okay, so imagine this guy goes up to Ursay's office at the end of the day. Let's imagine that Ursay had no say on this benching and whatnot. So Steichen went in there and he was like, okay, like Flacco gives me the better chance of winning. Then he has to go in there at the end of the season and say with a straight face that Flacco, a 4-year-old QB that was throwing like 3 interceptions versus the the Buffalo Bills, for example, who do not have like an extraordinary defense. They have a solid defense, but it's not extraordinary. And he's like throwing 3 interceptions versus them. He's throwing 1 interception versus the Minnesota Vikings. So he threw 4 interceptions in there. And you have to go to your boss's office and you have to explain going into week 11 why you're still starting Joe Flacco. So how do you make that argument? Is it just like, okay, this guy is 40, so he has no margin of progression whatsoever. We have a guy on the bench that has a whole lot of progression left on him. Apparent production, apparent. Jesus Christ! I just said the word. He has a lot. He has a lot of appeal to him for the future because he's still very raw. And you have this guy on your bench, and it's like the offense is giving you similar production. Why not go? Even though like Richardson also faced tough defenses, why not give the reins to the guy that actually has a chance of progressing towards being a better QB and you getting a better QB and your franchise being set for the future over starting a guy that has absolutely no chance whatsoever of being your starting QB next year. Like even to the fans, it's hard to explain that because like you're 4-6, your chance of making the playoffs are dire. The guy that jumped in 2 games in a row didn't really help your chances whatsoever. You were 4-4 when you got in there. You're 4-6 right now. So it's like didn't even make any sort of dent in terms of like trying to actually get wins. And you have to go in there and you have to say you're right. Yeah, this guy's going to be the right play because what? Like he's a vet, so he should know better. Like this is who Flacco is. Flacco is the guy. Like, do not get fooled by Flacco from Cleveland last year. This is the same Flacco that you got, for example, in the Jets when Zach Wilson was benched or got hurt or whatever. This is the same Flacco. Like he's going to make picks. He does not have a whole lot of velocity left on his arm. So it's like the ball sometimes comes out as a duck. He's making ill-advised plays. He's a gunslinger. But his gun is like he doesn't have a rocket anymore. He has a BB gun. So this is what you get. You get turnovers. You get balls that just sail over players' head because the velocity is just weird right now with him. And you get an offense that just looks discombobulated. And you're saying to me that that guy that is 40-year-old, all of those defects, no chance of ever being your starting QB next year, is going to be the play over the 22-year-old that you invested a 4th-round pick. I'll tell you again, 4th-round pick. Come on.
I'm just saying, the coach wants to keep his job. Flacco is probably more likely to make sure that Steichen is there next year. And Richardson
That's
is not.
because he wants to keep his job. That's probably why Richardson is back being the starter.
Well, then he's going to lose his job.
Or not. Maybe Ursay went in there and said, my guy, if you start Flacco again, you're getting fired because this shit can't go on. And Steichen was, okay, Richardson is back. Let's go. That's it. That's what you're getting. So it's A-Rich, rest of season. He has a few interesting matchups starting this week, like because the Jets defense really hasn't been anything to write home about. So he has an interesting matchup this week. Going forward, I still think their schedule is not the toughest. But I could look at it fairly quickly right now. So you're still looking at after the Jets this week, you're looking at the Lions, then you're looking at the Patriots, then a bye. It's actually tougher than I expected. Then you still have the Broncos, the Titans, the Giants, and the Jags to finish up the season. So 2 easy enough defenses at the end. But the Broncos, the Titans, the Patriots, and even the Lions have somewhat strong defenses. So I mean, you're talking about strong defenses. He's going to face them as well. So we'll see how it goes. I don't think this team is making the playoffs anyway, so you'd rather just see what you have on this guy and keep the fans invested. At the end of the day, it's a bit like that.
Flacco is the best quarterback in Indy right now. That's all I'm saying.
You're
I'm
insane.
saying.
You're still
I
insane.
can't say.
You're
I
still
can't
insane,
say.
Angel. You know, you are. You indeed are. There's no way that that is the case. Like, that's why he's benched finally. So
He
we're
said,
happy about that.
finally. It's like,
That was 2 weeks more than it should have been.
uh, no, it should have been longer. Honestly,
Yeah,
probably should have been much longer.
you know who should have been fired? What 10 weeks ago before he even got hired? Shane Waldron. That's the guy that should have been fired before he ever got hired.
So now we're blaming Shane Waldron for Caleb Williams' struggles.
Again, looking at Chicago Bears Twitter, Reddit, that is, my guys were upset as well. They were not happy about Shane Waldron
Oh,
being in there.
oh.
They were thinking that this guy was overcomplicating the offense,
Caleb
which again,
Waldron,
it's what he
yeah.
did in Seattle. That's why he got fired.
It's always going to be. It's always going to be an excuse. Now it's Shane Waldron. Next, you're going to blame the wide receivers, and then if that fails, you're going to blame Eberflus, and it's just going
Hey,
to keep going and
the
going and
thing
going. But don't
is,
worry. But don't worry. When Justin Fields was there, none of this. This was all perfectly fine. Everything was all perfectly fine. It was Justin Fields' fault. And now that the same things is happening, it's everyone but Caleb Williams' fault. Okay, I see it. I see you, man. I see you, man.
okay, so
Tell
things
me,
are
tell
happening
me why this
again.
isn't Caleb Williams' fault.
As you said, the same things are happening as it happened with Justin Fields. So it's like, I'm guessing the issue was with the Bears after all. Is that what you're trying to
No,
say then?
oh no,
You said
no.
it. You said it. Not me. You said it.
Go on, go on.
You
It seems
you
like
you
you had a moment
literally
of
just
self-reflection there. So go on,
no
man.
no you literally just told me that like when Fields was there, you didn't think Fields was the issue. Now Fields is gone. Caleb is there. There's still the issue. So I'm hoping that you're trying to say that Caleb wasn't the issue after all. Just like Fields wasn't the issue for you. And it is the coaching staff. And it is the cursed franchise. So I get that's what you're saying. I agree that the issue is not with Caleb Williams. 100% agree. Don't get me wrong. We say this, don't get me wrong. I think Caleb has his fair share of the play. Now, this would be a good gotcha moment if I didn't sit here on like July, for example, or whenever like Waldron was appointed the OC and said on this show, told the audience that Waldron was a very bad hiring. Because Waldron is, and always will be, a bad OC. He was a bad OC in Seattle. That's why he got fired, because he overcomplicates everything. It's like screens when you don't need to call the screens. He calls zone beaters when you're facing man. It's all over the place for this guy. And that can happen with a rookie. The rookie needs to have, no matter who the rookie is, you need to oversimplify everything. You look at what Washington was doing. Started the season with Jaden Daniels. You watch the first 1, 2 games, and you see a trend. You see that Jaden Daniels in college was known for the deep ball. And the coaching staff got in there and said, okay, you have this great weapon to your disposal, which is the deep ball. Let's try and work on everything else. Let's try and work on the basics. Let's try and work on the short stuff, the quick stuff. Let's simplify stuff for you to start. And you watch those games and you're sitting in there and you're like, okay, it's very clear that they're not opening up the playbook right away for Daniels, but it's very clear that they should, because you can see that this guy could be doing more if he got the full reins, if he got the permission to throw the deep ball, if they were not going for the intermediate stuff, the cross the middle stuff, the short stuff, all that often, he could do better, and he will do better because that's his type of play. And you watch from like week 3, week 4 on, you see an offense that integrates that part of his game. You see an offense that is not throwing shots on the field, and the offense looks much better in general. You look at what Chicago has been doing with Caleb Williams, and it's just like, for example, Caleb Williams in college, biggest trait that he had was be able to extend plays, get out of the pocket, look for the deep play, not be one of those guys that just like takes off and runs with the ball, but just buys time in the pocket, buys time outside of the pocket, but looks for the pass deep. That's when he made those hero plays that got him drafted number one overall. You see the Bears right now, and it's week 11. We're going into week 11, and you're still not seeing them allowing Caleb Williams to do that, which is like, that's the biggest part of his game. And we're being kind of like, no, you're not doing that. You're running our system. And our system, we didn't even start with the easy stuff. We went straight into the deep end, and you have an overcomplicated system. You have an O-line that can't block all that well right now because you're missing the two starting tackles. So, of course, like, if you have an overcomplicated offense, it's hard to eat those long developing routes when you're clearly like, if you do not have the time and you're not allowing your QB to leave the pocket and extend the plays, what the fuck do you want, man? And then, yeah, like, there's low efforts from the wide receivers. We've seen that. Keenan Allen still looks kind of washed, unfortunately. Rome Odunze is the one guy that keeps on trying every single play. DeAndre Swift has been playing better than I expected when he got in there. But it's at the end of the day, it's the overcomplication. And I'm expecting that with the OC change. I don't expect a whole lot to change. But I do expect like them at least to go back to the basics and run some more like basic stuff for Caleb to get used to. And maybe just for the love of God, try and create good plays, good like scripted plays to start the game because they suck even at that. Like, if you can't even script plays to start, what are we doing?
So Austin would ask you this question: is Caleb not a bust?
Caleb is not a bust
Oh my god.
because we're 10 games in. And he was the consensus 101 in this draft. It's like, have we ever, like, you look at, for example, Trevor Lawrence, and he was the consensus number one overall pick. He was the quote unquote generational prospect of that class. They gave him 1 year, they gave him a pass that it was Urban Meyer. Second year comes in, it's better. I believe that's when they win the playoff game versus the Los Angeles Chargers, but that one shouldn't even count because it's the Chargers, and they were down 28-0 at the half. And after that, it's been like 2 bad years, if I'm not mistaken. We're on year 5 right now. Like, he looks like a bust, but no one calls him a bust, usually. Like, he got a $270 million deal. So it's like, it's hard to say that people are calling him a bust. Yet, we should throw Caleb Williams under the bus 10 games in. Okay. Despite the
Caleb.
fact,
God.
no, despite the fact that, like, we knew that Eberflus should have been replaced. Like, this was all known. We talked about this. Like, they should have fired the head coach, and they should have started clean because if the head coach was still an issue with Caleb Williams, it's like then you're firing after Caleb Williams' first year, and like now you're rotating the staff around him, and you do not want to place your young QB in a situation like that.
Yeah. Tell me when we're done giving excuses for Caleb. That's what I want to know.
Just give me another, what, 15 games?
15 games?
Giving him a season and a half. Because he is that good.
Okay. It's like he's that good. Okay. He is that good.
I mean, people gave Fields 3 seasons. Why can't I give like 15 games to Caleb Williams? That's all
fair.
that I'm saying. It's like, after 3 seasons, he still barely threw for 200 yards per game. he was still making dumbfounded like turnovers on fumbles on weird shit like that, and people were still giving him passes. They still weren't getting to the playoffs, and I'm told that they still should have gotten ahead with Justin Fields. Why can't I give him a year and a half? Caleb, I'm not even. I'm giving him half of what you guys gave Justin Fields. That's all I'm asking.
That's all he's asking, huh? Okay.
And as I said on on Thursday's episode, we do not compare Caleb Williams to guys that are benched. That's just like
Oh my god.
and well benched because after being benched, Russell Wilson 3-0 in the games.
Well, it's impossible. We cannot compare Caleb Williams to guys who are benched.
No.
Just give it a few more weeks.
Just does not make
So then if
sense.
Caleb Williams, so there is a report that there are veteran players asking for the benching of Caleb Williams. So if that comes to fruition and Caleb Williams does indeed get benched, then I'm sorry, but we will now have to compare Caleb Williams and Justin Fields.
In that case,
Break
sure,
it to you, buddy.
we would
Hate
be
to break it to you, buddy.
comparing those for sure if that happens. But
But
that
you
isn't
know, by
happening.
your logic, who we can compare then?
Who?
Justin Fields to Anthony Richardson of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, but it's like one guy has 10 games, the other one had 3 seasons. So it's still like there's levels to this.
There's levels to this, huh?
I mean, a source close to me also said that I was asking for for Fields to be benched for Bagent back when he was with the Chicago Bears. So there's a report for you as well.
Yeah, they did that.
No, it was just for while Fields was hurt. They didn't bench him.
Is Tyson Badgett really better than we give him credit for?
No, it's shit. I tried to push that narrative, and it's just like no. There's actually no chance that you can make that narrative.
He's like, no, he's just
No.
shit. Okay.
No, there's absolutely nothing there. Outside of his dad being like an arm wrestling champion, that's about it. That's just like the peak of Tyson Badgent's career. Because it's not good whatsoever, man. You know who's not good as well, whatsoever?
Not good. Give it to
The
me.
Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, no.
I need someone to explain me why we keep giving like passes to Jerry Jones when he's like, Jerry Jones reminds me a whole lot about like, I don't want to say it because then we're getting into grounds that we do not want to get, but it's like, it's just that kind of person that is just super feisty versus the media when the media doesn't give them what they want. And it's just like, again, this week, you had an instance in which CeeDee Lamb dropped the football because he was in a hand zone. He was making he was like the ball went straight into his hands. He was wide open, but the sun was obviously glaring him because that's been an issue with the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. And like the reporters came in and they asked, I mean, you have this like sunshade thing in the stadium that you use in like concerts and whatnot. Do you consider using that for this situation? Because this is not the first time that it has happened. Why not use that and just protect your team in that instance? Which to me felt like a fairly reasonable question. It's just like if you have this tool that will help your team, why not use it? And the answer was just like, yeah, we do not now we don't know our own stadium. Now we do not like when we actually call the coin flip. We know where the sun is going to shine on. It's not like we're some dumbasses that don't know. You're kind of a dumbass, Jerry Jones. But I understand being defensive because the one thing that you've built on your like entirety of like your stint with the Dallas Cowboys as an owner of the Dallas Cowboys is like this monument that you call Jerry's World, which again feels like some sort of an ego issue. But yeah, someone doesn't want to deflate their ego and admit that like the stadium wasn't built properly, at least in that department of like glaring your own players, and like not having a roof that closes. They have like just a fucking curtain shade or something like that. Um, but I understand not wanting to admit that when the only thing good that you've built for the Dallas Cowboys is that one piece of stadium. But it's just like I don't think you need to be that way versus the media. And it's not the first time that Jerry has been doing that this year. There's also an instance early in the year in which he said that he was going to look for a reporter to make him the questions now because he was fed up with the questions a certain reporter was making him on the radio. It just feels like he's really one of the worst owners. I know people don't want to say that because he got Dallas a few titles back before I was born. And I'm almost 30 right now. So it's been a while since they won a title. But it's like, even you defended them. And I think you are a very rational person. So defending this type of behavior from an owner, there is clearly way over his head that should not be making roster decisions like trading fourth round picks for Jonathan Mingo and Trey Lance. Not to use those guys just feels dumb, man. What is next for the Dallas Cowboys?
What is what?
What is next for the Dallas Cowboys?
Uh I could see them going one of two ways. I think either they're going to realize that they're quickly falling behind the definitely the Eagles. Like you can bash the Eagles you as all you want. You can call them a fake team, but Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, and AJ Brown is a very nasty offensive duo. I was gonna say duo tandem. They're behind the Eagles to me. I think they're behind the Commanders, and the Commanders literally just started rebuilding. And honestly, I think if the Giants got a fucking quarterback, they'd also be close to or even behind the Giants. So I think eventually reality will set in, and they will either take a step back, retool the team, and do what Jerry loves to do best and draft players and then develop those players, or they'll be they'll stay the course with Dak because they kind of have to now. They paid him, right?
Yeah,
They can't just cut ties at this point.
no, that's impossible.
So stay the course with where they are, or they'll get nervous and they'll make a move. I do think I do think the next big move, the next big player that gets moved will be going to Dallas. But we'll see.
I, I you mentioned that they could be behind the New York Giants. And I look at the Giants situation and like cap wise, where they are in the draft right now, I feel like there's not even an argument. I really do feel like they are behind the Giants as well right now. Because the Giants, unless they get in their own way again. But if they are out of their own way, it looks like they're on their way to benching Daniel Jones. That's been like the rumors around the league right now is that everything is on the table. Usually when a coach says that like everything is being discussed, everything is on the table right now for when you come out of the bye, it feels like it's
I
over
mean, I
for
think
the
Brian
starting
Dable is
QB.
another bad loss away from being fired.
I don't think he gets I don't think we get
I'm
another coach
honestly
fired.
surprised he survived losing to the Panthers. Like I literally the first thing I saw after the first thing I looked for after that game ended was Brian Daboll's status as the head coach of the Giants. And I was really surprised he's still there.
I just don't think because of that, I just don't think another coach will get fired, really. Um until the end of the season. Then you have that like Black Monday after the season ends, in which like every coach that's going to get axed will be axed. But yeah, I think like until the season ends, that's about it. And you look at like, for example, their position in the draft right now. Dallas is 3-6. The Giants are 2-7, if I'm not mistaken. So you look at that, you look at the roster as well. Like the Dallas Cowboys, they are 23rd in the league in cap space for next year. Right now, projected cap space, that is. They have the seventh highest total cap being used. They still have players that need to be resigned because they're currently not with the team. Then you have like guys that will demand an extension. So, for example, like a Micah Parsons, for example, he will want an extension next year. Now, that probably lowers the number for next year, but you still have some big chunks, and you'll be losing DeMarcus Lawrence, for example, so that's not accounted for. You'll be losing other guys as well, and it just feels like the roster as it is currently constructed, and with the coaches that are in there, this just feels like a team that is going nowhere fast. Like they need a hard reset. Like they've signed Dak to this huge extension. Like he has a $90 million cap hit next year, which is just insane. They do not realistically have an out on him until like after the 2027 season. So like whoever coach comes in, because I'm assuming Mike McCarthy is fired, and that's hard to assume with Jerry Jones because he kind of wants to prove that this guy will work under him, which I feel like he's the only one that even thinks that right now. But assuming he gets fired, I don't know. I don't know. Like, is this? Let me name you a few teams that are probably going to be without a coach. This next season, and it's like I'm looking at the teams, and the Jets are probably going to have an opening. I feel like they are probably on par with the Cowboys. That's probably the one thing that, like, with the roster construction and whatnot, with the issues with Rodgers, I don't know what's going to happen there. So they're probably on par with the Dallas Cowboys as a non-attractive opening. In the AFC North, I don't think anyone gets fired. In the South, I think Doug Peterson gets fired, probably. Do we think that the Jags are a more appealing spot than the Dallas Cowboys?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Then you look at the West. Maybe Antonio Pierce gets fired, but I think he still will have a lot of backing from the players, so maybe not. You look at the NFC East, and it's like the same thing that we were discussing. Are the New York Giants, if they are, for example, a top three pick in the NFL draft, a top two pick in the NFL draft, are they a more appealing landing spot than the Dallas Cowboys?
Potentially. Like I said, in that case, it really just depends on how well you like the quarterbacks in the incoming class and who you are projecting to take there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you look at it, and it's like you're probably looking at what Shadur Sanders right now as the main QB. I think there's another guy as well that is being touted as being the one overall, which is like I want to remember his name. The guy I was thinking
Jalen
about.
Milrow of Alabama.
No, it's the Miami guy, Cam
Cam
Ward.
Ward. Yeah.
Yeah, Cam Ward. That's like the one guy that is also being touted heavily as being the better QB. But I don't know, like, are any of those guys actually like the solution at the QB position? I guess Cam Ward maybe.
So here's
Um,
the thing with quarterbacks is you don't know. Okay? So Bryce Young came in with no fanfare as the 101. He busted, right? Absolutely. And Caleb Williams came in as the 101 of the last class with all the hype, and he is struggling. The quarterback two in the Bryce Young draft was CJ Stroud. And I don't know about you, but there was a debate, but there wasn't as much of a debate as people should have had between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Like I said, Bryce Young came in with basically no hype. but he was still considered the consensus 101. And CJ Stroud was the much better quarterback. So I don't think saying for certain that a quarterback in a particular draft class is going to be better. It's a crapshoot, dude. Quarterback is so hard to project forward. It's so hard. So, like, Jalen Milroe could be the best quarterback out of this class. Maybe it's Cam Ward. Maybe it is Shadir Sanders. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to lie. With quarterbacks, it's just feeling for me. I had a feeling about Patrick Mahomes. I was right. I had a bad feeling about Josh Allen. I was wrong. And I think that goes with everyone. You can't just say, just bringing in a young quarterback is going to fix your issues. And you can't just say that it's not, because again, Caleb Williams came in with all the hype in the world. We are talking about the potential of him being a bust. At least Austin would, and there are a lot of people in the mainstream media who also would. Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, wasn't even in the debate. Wasn't even in the debate for 101. He is clearly the best quarterback out of this class so far. You don't know. You just don't know.
I
Right?
feel
Wrong?
like no, I agree with you. I agree with you with most of the points that you make. I feel like the one guy that I sort of have one inclination that is actually going to be decent at the next level is indeed Sanders. But I feel like no one wants to have that sort of discussion because no one is actually like into the whole Sanders family because this again, if you're listening to this and you also listen to the NBA podcast, if you're not listening to the NBA podcast, then why aren't you listening to it? So please do. But it feels like they are a bit like the LaMelo Ball thing, the Ball family in general. That it feels like if you get Sanders, you're probably also getting Prime in there, and that is not the best look because I could see, for example, a Giants team, not really the Giants, but if like, for example, Dallas was in a position of being able to draft Shadur Sanders, I feel like that's a place where Prime could go. Now, I don't think that the shine that Prime brings is going to sit well with Jerry Jones because he is for sure going to outshine Jerry Jones, and God knows that can happen. So I feel like it's the drama that Shadur Sanders brings because even if he comes next year without his father, I feel like the year after that's going to happen. Plus, we have the unknowns of what is this dude without his dad? Like without his dad, his dad been coaching him his whole career from the high school to now. It's been his dad, always as his coach. How does he do with an actual coach? Not your dad. That's kind of the question marks that we're having, and I think that's going to ding him. And I think that's going to ding him more than it should. Because I feel like, although he is raw, and although I see some of the issues that he has in his game, I feel like this guy is actually going to pan out in the league. It just depends on what he can do without his dad and how he adapts to that.
I mean, that's fair.
That's my gut feeling right now. Without having watched a whole lot of tape yet, without really delving in deep into what like the players are in this class, I feel like this is the one guy that the league is probably going to ding more than it should. Or we're going the complete opposite direction and we're hyping up the Sanders name and this guy becomes a hype machine and he is the one overall pick and he just completely blunders. I feel like two things will happen. Either he goes top three or even the first overall player in the board and he absolutely busts because although I do think he's good, I don't think he's that type of good, and the expectations will be massive. Or he's going to get dinged to hell, and he's going to be like a bottom end first round pick or a high end second round pick, and he's going to excel. I really think it's one of those two cases right now because he's either getting overhyped to hell or he's going to be dinged a lot. And I think this guy actually has a lot of talent.
Hmm.
Do you
I
have any sort of like a take on these guys yet? Because you watch a bit more, I think, of
Mhm.
college football than I do,
Yeah, it's
and
more
you're
of
in
a
the
it's
states.
more in America, it's more of a, I guess, standard. I don't know how to explain it. So there are a lot of people here in America that believe the college football game is a lot better than the NFL game as far as visually to watch. I mean, not granted, it's America. There's always delusional people in America who think the college game is just better, like talent wise, than the NFL, which is just a crazy take. But yeah, I mean, I guess my brain always goes to in a fantasy aspect, and I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards Sanders because he does have that like Lamar Jackson rushing upside kind of build. So I don't know. I just don't know what to make of him because you see when you watch him play, he looks just like a winner. He looks like a just amazing. But at the same time, there's that thing in the back of my mind that says, is the way this guy plays really gonna there's a few players in Colorado. The dude who plays wide receiver at DB, I believe his name is Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis Hunter.
There's that same voice in the back of my head that goes, is Travis Hunter really gonna like do it in the NFL as well? And I don't know.
On Travis Hunter, I don't think he will succeed in the NFL if he plays the two sides of the ball. I don't think that's ever going to work right now with the intensity of the game, um, with how much like the offense and defense just rotates game in game out. Now, will it work if he plays like 15 snaps on defense? Sure, I think so, but that's not actually like playing on both sides of the football.
Well,
It's
that's the
just like
thing.
you have a few packages here and there, and
That's
that's okay.
that's the thing that the team that drafted him is going to have to discuss. Do you use him on both ends? Is that viable? And then the debate that I'm sure that we're going to be having a lot is, which side of the ball is he actually better at? Because there is not a consensus on that. I've seen people who say he's a much better DB and some people who say he's a much better wide receiver. That I think that the fact that is a debate just says how talented he is just as an athlete, but that is a question I think when you get to the NFL that has to be answered. Which side of the ball are you better at? And
And I think
does the
this.
team that drafts you agree with that? And how do they want to use?
I was watching Deion
This
Sanders talk
this is
about
an
it a
interesting
bit.
take. Here's an interesting question for fantasy purposes. Is Travis Hunter in the draft pool for dynasty rookie drafts and redrafts when we get into 2025? And if he doesn't play wide receiver, what does that mean?
I think that for regular leagues, so regular, I'm speaking just offense leagues. We have the one league which is like IDP as well. I think that one is for sure in.
Yeah, no,
So,
he's in for that. Yeah.
but on a regular league, I think you will know fairly quick what they plan to do because I was watching Prime talk about this, and like he made a point that is just absolutely correct, which is like the team who will draft him. I think every team that will talk to him, they will know from that part of the draft process exactly what he wants to do. And if he's going in there and he's saying that he's okay just playing one side of the football, then be it. He's going to, when they draft him, they're going to call out a certain position. That's his position, and you'll see like the one that he's coming out to the draft for. If he insists on playing both sides of the football, I feel like he is going to be available for us to draft him. But that just becomes like did he say to the team, okay, I'm okay. I need to play the both sides of the football. That's like my one wish is that I'm going to play both sides of the football, but I'm okay just playing like, I don't know, 30 snaps on each side. And then you're a part-time player on both sides, but you're at least in the team and you're playing both sides as you want. But you're a part-time player in the sense of, especially on offense, which you would want for fantasy, he's just going to be like one of those, for example, like a JMO when he came out, for example, which is just like a deep target guy, or one of the thousand guys that we've been seeing time and time again, like a Calvin Austin, for example, as well. Probably a better example, which is going to be a guy that you really can start week to week. So that just tells me that he's now maybe he comes out and because he is being drafted with dual eligibility, that just thinks his draft stock enough that you're drafting him as like a second round pick, for example. Now, is that actually going to happen? I sort of doubt it because I think the hype of the Travis Hunter name is going to be better and is going to propel him to be drafted higher than he maybe should have been if he's only like giving you 30 snaps on offense. I think the scenario which is more interesting
So
even
you're
is
I'm more risk, like I more embrace the risk. You're more risk averse. Let's say you had no confirmation or no information on what position Travis Hunter is playing. What is the highest selection pick you would be happy or okay drafting him in with the knowledge that you might be throwing away this pick altogether this year?
I think a late first.
Late first?
Probably from like the 9 or 10 range until the end of the first. So if you're playing in a 12 team, it's 9 to 12. If you're playing on a, I don't know, 16 team like we do, 9 to 16, I'm okay with that range. Anything higher than that. But plus, it just also becomes like how good this draft class is. Because I'm still looking into it, and right now it's Janty for sure. That's like the guy that
Yeah.
everyone will want. That's the unanimous 101. Then there's a few wide receivers that are interesting. I believe McMillan from Arizona is one that is quite interesting, if I'm not mistaken. Then you have a few wide receivers that are probably like clear above him, even with that issue. But then it just becomes who is going to be those guys that do not come out in this draft class, and that just might shrink the certain players enough to the point in which in a position as I was last year, which was like the tier break is here. For example, I was picking, I don't know, I think it was like 10 or 12, and it was a clear tier break. Like no one wanted that pick and anything like that. If I was in a position like that, in which it was a clear tie break, there's like five guys that I could draft here that are all very much the same, then I'm okay just taking the jump on Travis Hunter. So like maybe there's a scenario in which like four guys are certain, four guys are great, and the rest just it's a mix of like eight guys in the next year, and that includes Travis Hunter. Then I'm okay just like for example drafting him fifth overall if I do not have a strong take on the rest of them because the upside is there, and there's maybe even a case in which like he gets drafted as a DB, which I think it's probably what he should do. He's played DB, he's playing cornerback because I do think in terms of financially, I think that's a better decision for him because I do think he will be a better cornerback than a wide receiver, and he can break the bank on a cornerback while wide receiver. Although I think he will be good. I don't think he will be in the chase range to break the bank as a wide receiver when that contract comes up. I do think that as a cornerback, he can be up there as the top of the market cornerback. So, but there's maybe even a situation in which he gets drafted to play corner, and then like I don't know, 10 games in, they move him to offense, and now you have a starting wide receiver. Like that also can happen, and that probably is going to think is stuck the most is if he comes out and he is like declaring as a cornerback. If that happens, I think his stock takes a ding. But even then, I probably draft him. Even in the second round, like in the second round, I for sure draft Travis Hunter right now. If he ever falls to the second, even if he's just saying that he wants to play DB, I'm just going to draft him because there's always a chance that a guy like this can flip back and play offense.
It's fair. That's a fair take. Oh.
That's That's probably where I land here on this.
Hmm. So what other dumb
So,
organization do you want to rant about?
what other dumb organization is there for me to talk about? Let me
Well, you
look at
didn't
that.
really. Did you really rant about the Bears, or did you just take my point and run?
I
I
just
feel
think
I
that
feel
the
like you
Bears.
ducked. I feel like you ducked bashing the Bears too much.
I think that the Bears situation is one that I mentioned at the start of the season, which is just completely idiotic. That you like that last year's team, and you can the QB, you can the OC, you can all of those people, but you left the head coach in charge
Mm-hmm.
for what? Like he didn't give you really anything that should give you any sort of like any hope that he's going to turn this around and be an actual good offensive coach. And you're drafting the number one overall player in the draft. You're drafting Caleb Williams. It's a new start everywhere. Why didn't you also start new at the head coach position? It's always been my question. It's like, imagine that, and now you don't even need to imagine, but if you were to imagine that the season was going wrong, which is not right now going wrong, like you're looking probably at a position in which you need to fire your head coach right now. And this should always be why you do not go into this position of like you having a star rookie wide receiver, star rookie QB, and you having a coach that already came from another QB that lost two years, if I'm not mistaken, had two losing seasons. Now you're just in a position in which you need to fire the head coach, and you need to bring in an head coach that. Although this is a bit of a different situation with Caleb, because when you got Eberflus in, you knew that, like for example, Justin Fields at 2 years in already, or 1 year in already. He did not have the hype of Caleb, so you were just in a weird position in which, like, eventually the plug will need to be pulled from this to have your head coach having a new QB that he chooses. But like, you made that mistake with Fields. It should have been like the QB comes in with the head coach. They are both in there for the same amount of time, and then you fire the head coach. But no, you got in there. If I'm not mistaken, Eberflus joined the year after Caleb was drafted, so you messed up there. Now you go into this situation. Now you have the head coach. You draft the QB. Now next year you're probably having to drop the head coach because this isn't going well. He isn't showing you that he actually can be a good head coach. And now next year the QB is a year in, and you're bringing in an head coach. Like things need to go hand in hand here. And now, given I feel like the hype of Caleb is probably enough to the point in which you're having a situation like a Trevor Lawrence, which you will have like coaches that are actually highly rated and highly touted come in because they want to work with this guy and they want to be the guy that quote unquote saved the former guy that had all the hype in the world. And I think that's probably enough appeal that this doesn't completely blow in their face. But it's just like it's a stupid organization when you make the same mistake in like back-to-back QBs, which because this is the same exact thing. You should have fired the head coach. You should have started clean. Heck, even at the GM. But I understand why you didn't fire the GM. Um, Even though you traded a third round pick for a washed up Keenan Allen, I understand why you didn't fire him. But at least the coaching staff, it should have been all new with the QB, and it should have been hand in hand. When one coaching staff goes, the QB goes. And that's what you want to do. Now you're in this weird position. Like everything is going to change around Caleb at the end of the season. It's not going to be Eberflus. It's not going to be the same offense. Now you need to adjust that. Now, maybe given it's probably easier to adjust because like this offense, everything was shit. So maybe it's not that hard of an adjustment. It's just going from shit to good. It's a bit different than like, for example, what Mac Jones had, in which he went from good to shit. Now you're actually going from shit to good, hopefully.
Hmm.
That's like my one big thing with the Bears. Now, if they bench Caleb for whatever reason, that will be a bigger rant because like that's the one that is just like I if they bench Caleb Williams and I'm a rookie coming out of the draft for the next 10 years, I'm saying that I'm not going to the Chicago Bears. You fucked up Caleb. I'm not going to play for the Bears. Like, go fucking use some retread, 40-year-old QB. Go bring Philip Rivers out of retirement if you want, but like, you're not getting a rookie. Heck, even the NFL, I would say, as the NFL, as Roger Goodell, I would go in there and like, you can draft anyone but a QB. You fucked up too much.
Well, that's what
They
I
will
got.
get an embargo from drafting QBs for the next decade if they bench Caleb Williams on year one.
Hmm. Interesting. Hmm. So what else you got? Because I've run out of ideas. This is all right. We have the power rankings, so we can argue
We
about
have
that. That's
we
right.
have the power
You
rankings. Yeah,
got
I
to
was
announce
going
the
to say.
power rankings.
I feel like the power rankings are probably the best thing to do right now because
Yeah.
if you follow the show from last year, we had a segment in which we would make the power rankings, just 1 through 10. Say how we rank these teams, and just go from there, discuss them a bit, and just track this weekly, basically. So it's like there's going to be risers, there's going to be fallers. Angelo is going to stick on his teams a bit more than he should. He's going to be mad because I'm looking at some shit teams in the NFL, and I'm calling them out on it. And he's going to say, "Oh no way, you're ranking the Eagles outside of the top one, just so they can go into the playoffs and get slapped by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers." So it's like I was right on that one from the get go, and it's like they were never good. But yeah, if you followed from last year, it's a good segment. We didn't start from like the actual start because it just feels pointless at times. There's a lot of movement here and there, but like it's 10 weeks in. We only have 8 weeks more for the NFL season, and you're roughly getting this at around half season. So it's going to be good. You're going to be tracking this along. And yeah, I feel like we can finally go back into this because it is a fun segment. So, do you want to give me your 10th best team in the NFL right now, Angel?
Yes, I do, Alex.
Give it to me straight.
Alex,
Yes.
it's the Houston Texans.
See, this is the issue, right? Like, we're doing this segment, and it's just like he immediately goes off the rails, and he actually names a team. You're actually naming a team that just blew a 3 touchdown lead at the half to a team that threw 5 interceptions. I'm just making this clear right now
Oh my
that
God.
this is your 10th best team in the NFL.
It just has to go to faith. They have CJ Stroud. They have Joe Mixon. The defense is progressing.
They also have Bobby Slowick, which
I'm look.
immediately gives them like a
Oh my
minus
God.
10.
I'm looking at the
So
other
they're
teams. Do you have faith in the Chargers? I don't know. Do you have faith in the Cardinals, even though they're 6-4? Hell no. The only team I considered at 10 was the San Francisco 49ers at 5-4. I was like, am I ready for that? I don't know. I'll give San Fran another week or two. So who's your 10 then, Alex? Who is better than the Houston Texans to you?
the Washington Commanders are sitting at
10?
number 10 for me. Yeah, that's my 10.
Wow.
We're going with the Commanders at 10. Maybe could be even a bit higher because I feel like, but this is going to be the big prove it week. It's versus the Eagles on Thursday Night Football. It's going to be a big game for them. But I feel like they've played an actual kind of easy schedule right now. I'm seeing their strength of schedule today is actually like the 31st. But this is still like a good team. They are playing well. They're playing good football. The defense has been turned around. And offensively, like their conversions are fourth down. I would need to check what happened this week, But until this week, they were perfect on fourth down conversions. They had, if I'm not mistaken, 11 on 11. This is a team that situational football. They played that great. They get the wins on the fourth down. The offense tends to always get points in every single drive. So this is a team that I really like. It's a young team. I feel like the loss of Brian Robinson the past few weeks didn't really help them out, but he should be back this week. So I like Washington. I feel like they're the 10th best team in the league right now.
So my number 9 team I actually debated putting at 10 and moving Houston to 9. And you'll notice this as a trend on my list, but it's the Minnesota Vikings. And the reason the Minnesota Vikings are number 9 on my list is because I do have faith in the defense. I was wrong. I thought this would be the worst team in the NFL, and I was wrong. But what I appear to have been right about is the assessment of the offense. And now that Sam Darnold is starting to come down more to earth, how many games can a defense win you? And not only that, how many wins or can a defense get you to the Super Bowl? I don't think so. It's really just faith in quarterback play that has Minnesota down here. And really, the as the list goes up, you're going to start to notice I have more faith in the quarterbacks and I care less about the defense as the list gets higher. But if you got both, that's a plus, obviously. Go on.
I am right there with you. It's also the Minnesota Vikings for me at 9. Because unlike the Washington Commanders, the Minnesota Vikings actually have played a very difficult schedule so far. They are the sixth toughest schedule to date, and the rest of the season it gets a bit better. They have the 21st schedule in terms of strength of schedule, so it's around a bit below middle of the park, so a bit easier. So 32nd is obviously the weakest schedule. They are sitting at 21 right now. This just feels like they are probably a bit capped by how Sam Darnold is playing currently. He looked like he was on fire to start the season. Now he's a bit back to being the Sam Darnold that we know from his time in the Jets. Now, given he does have Justin Jefferson, so he's not back to that level just now. But he is like starting to regress somewhat. So because of that, I really can't put them above 9. The defense is still elite, but if unfortunately the Brian Flores defense tends to take a knock as it goes on, so not exactly the best endorsement for them. But yeah, they're still 9 because I still do agree that this defense is elite, and until I see the drop off, I'm going to have to put them here, sitting at 9.
Okay, so my number 8 was actually the Washington Commanders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a little aggressive with the Commanders. I was actually surprised to see the Commanders at 9. I was actually actively debating if I put them at 8 if you were going to be more bullish or bearish on the Commanders than I am. And I guess we have that answer. But yeah, I mean, I'm a believer. Jaden Daniels is amazing. He's the truth. This team is better than any projections going into the season had them, unless you were like the most diehard of diehard Commanders fans. And I just gotta respect it. I believe that if they make the playoffs, they do have some chance to make some noise because I'm not sure how much I don't know who's coming out the NFC. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I know, but if you told me that the Lions didn't come out of the NFC, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me the Eagles did, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me the Commanders are in the Super Bowl when we get to January, February, I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure how surprised I would be.
I kind of agree. I feel like the NFC is really it's weird because I feel like both the NFC and the AFC have that issue in terms of like who do we actually think is going to make the playoffs right now, but it's for
Mhm.
completely different reasons because I feel like the AFC is top heavy and the rest it just completely drops off in the bottom. And the
Yeah.
NFC is just so competitive 1 through 7 right now, where I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, the Lions were the first seed, or like the Minnesota Vikings were the first seed. I just feel like those things could really flip in an instance, or the Washington Commanders were the number one seed. So I really feel like that can flip at any given moment. But yeah, I really feel like this Washington Commanders team, it reminds me a bit of the Atlanta Falcons team that went to the Super Bowl. Crazy enough, under Dan Quinn as well, which is just like a team that no one really expected a whole lot of, but they have the weapons and they have the good OC scheming up the offense, and they just face a very easy schedule, which the Washington Commanders are facing right now. Again, it's the second easiest schedule in the entire league so far. The rest of the way, it's still like 20-ish in terms of strength of schedule, so it's still going to be a relatively weak schedule for them. They have the talent, the defense is stepping up. So this just feels like one of those teams that can actually make a good run for the playoffs. It just depends on who they face. And at the end of the day, if the QB makes the mistake or not. But you know how these things go with the rookie QBs. In an instance, they can flip the game on you. So okay, my eighth team right now, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel like this is a team like the defense is playing good. The QB is playing good as well right now. They have the pieces on offense. Arthur Smith was heavily doubted, but the offense is clicking right now. I believe they're on a run of 4 straight games with 20 plus points, with 2 weeks of 30 plus, and one I believe was 28 this past week versus the Washington Commanders. So the offense is finally clicking. They have a good QB right now playing. The weapons are relatively healthy. Plus, I feel like they're emerging in terms of like wide receiver two. Calvin Austin is playing better. Van Jefferson is playing better. They now got Mike Williams in there as well. So I feel like the wide receiver core outside of George Pickens is also improving, is also stepping up. They're running sort of a tight end by rotation with Darnell Washington, Pat Fryermuth. I feel like that part of the offense is clicking well. Russ seems to not be back to his Seattle days, but he at least knows right now that he can't really use his legs as much as he used to use them when he was in Seattle. So that seems to be cleaned up from his time in Denver. He's trusting the wide receivers more to make some plays. I'm liking what I'm seeing right now from that team. Really liked this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and I feel like this can be one of those underdogs as well. They are the Washington Commanders, but from the AFC, because the defense is playing great. The
Mhm.
offense is still like it's clicking right now. It feels like they got in a good guy that is actually good OC, but not a good head coach. Much like Kingsbury was with the Cardinals. He wasn't a good head coach, but he is a good OC, I feel like. And the same is true for Arthur Smith. So I feel like both teams are fairly similar. It would be fun if we saw a Super Bowl between these two teams. No, I don't think so. They are ranked here for a reason because they still have some deficiencies. They're still like people are still not 100% sure about their offenses because much like Washington, Pittsburgh also has the issue that like they're faced a very easy schedule right now, 25th schedule in terms of strength of schedule, so the seventh worst, best that is. And now it comes the hard part because they have the second strongest schedule remaining out of every team. So it becomes hard right here, but they have like a 93% chance of making the playoffs right now, if not mistaken. So all that counts at the end of the day is making the playoffs, and then you can make a run. So
So funny enough, my number 7 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's
and you have them
once
back to
again,
back, the Steelers
I
and the Washington Commanders.
I put the once again, it's because of the defense. And granted, Russ is playing better than Justin Fields is. The Packers, the Steelers offense is performing well enough for the Steelers defense to get them wins. The question then becomes how much I still can't see myself picking the Steelers over the Bills. I definitely can't see myself picking the Steelers over the Chiefs. I don't know. And that's really the thing. You pointed out a lot of the points with the Steelers, so I kind of at a loss for words here. But yeah, they played an easy schedule. They're performing well, and you're right, they're probably going to make the playoffs. So here's a question. Let's I'm trying to think of who the wild card teams are. If the Steelers played the Bengals and the Bengals just snuck in, would you pick them?
Hmm.
Because I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'd pick the Steelers in that game.
That's a tough one. I probably would go back to my rule of what's the best unit on the field. And I feel like the best unit on the field would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Defense,
Really?
I think so. At this
Hmm.
stage, yeah. Because I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals, when they are missing T. Higgins, which seems to be on and off this year, I don't know
He's missed
when
last
he's
week.
going to be back from this injury right now. He's
Day
missed
to
two
day.
weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Day to day.
But it's a soft tissue injury, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Quad. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Quad. Is quad a soft tissue as well, or no? Probably. Yeah, it's this part. Yeah. So yeah, those can linger a bit. It's not hamstring, but it's still something that can possibly linger there for a bit. If they miss him, I feel like, or if he's not 100%, I feel like I probably can't put enough trust on the Cincinnati Bengals as a whole because without him, the offense really seems off. So I think I would pick the Steelers. I would be really torn. I feel like that game is very much like the. I think we'll get a lot of answers from the game that you guys are having with the Chargers this Sunday Night Football because I feel like the Chargers and the Pittsburgh Steelers are so similar in most regards. So I feel like
Hmm.
we'll get all the answers that we need with against the Chargers, especially if T is back. I feel like then you definitely get the answers that you need.
I
But
I'd say
right
that I
now,
have a lot
gut
more
check.
faith in Justin Herbert than I do Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson. I just think the
But I have
Steelers defense is a lot better.
yeah, that's the thing. Like I also have more faith in Herbert than I have Russell, but I have more faith in the Pittsburgh Steelers defense than I have the Chargers defense. So it edges out a bit. It evens out in the end.
Okay.
And funny enough, my seventh team, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. I feel like because of that, they are neck to neck to me. I gave the edge because of the QB playing a bigger factor than the defense.
Which
But they
tells
are
me that
like
the Chargers did not make my list.
with Flip. Now they have an actual good coach, so I'm okay going in on them. You seem to only like them when they had shit coaches, so that's okay. But again,
That helps.
they are incredibly similar to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so the argument is similar enough to me. I'm giving them the bit of the hedge with the QB, but this is like neck and neck. Like I could have flipped them. It's the same thing for me. They are one and the same at the end of the day in terms of teams. I just don't think these sort of teams, go deep enough in the playoffs. Usually, when they lean too much on the defense, when they lean too much on the running game, I feel like when you're in the playoffs, running is necessary. But I feel like passing and bailing you out in certain situations is also like key. And with the Chargers, the young wide receivers, I know the running game is good. Like I still can't trust them enough to put them anything above this, but I like them quite a bit.
So my number 6 is the Green Bay Packers. I don't think I can put them above any of the top 5, and I have a feeling that I'm going to get to you, and you're going to be my number 6 is the Philadelphia Eagles. But
No
but
comment.
oh no, don't do it, Alex. But I do think that a hot Jordan Love and a hot Packers offense. Again, let's go back to the NFC. If the Packers are hot, no one in the NFC can beat them. It's just flat. That's just the flat out truth. I think I would almost put them as a favorite, even over Detroit, because again, I understand the Packers have been struggling, and it feels like only one side of the ball is ever clicking at one moment for them, either the defense or the offense. But I just go back, and I go back to that Dallas game last year, and there was quite literally nothing the Cowboys could have done to win that game. And I think that if any team in the NFC has the top end potential to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, it is this Packers team. Because I'm sorry, NFL, there is nothing more oppressive than a hot Packers offense. There's my take.
I kind of agree with you, and that's why I have them higher than 6, purely because of that. Because I think when it gets out, and here we're talking about upside, and I feel like they have one of, if not the best upside in the entirety of the league right now, especially in the NFC. And I'm putting them a bit higher. And spoiler alert, it's probably my next one. But it's not going to be 6. 6 is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh my
Much as you said.
god.
Because again, like I feel like they are. I feel like they are a good team. They're a better team than last year. Sure, I'll give you that because I feel like the defense is a bit better. In fact, I don't even think it's a bit. I think it's much better. Um, I believe after their first few games, they are now like 5th in sort of EPA per play. The defense is, so they are playing better defense. Good part of that is because of Cooper DeJean playing on one side of that defense right now. He is really being a lockup cornerback right now. He's also great on special teams. But all of this said, though, it comes down to 2 things. And it is versus the Packers because I feel like these teams are in similar tier to me. So to decide between that, I'm looking at 2 things or 3 things. I'm looking at the head coach, and I'm giving that to Matt LaFleur by like a mile and a half, probably. I'm looking at QB, and it is close, but I think I'm gonna go upside, and I'm going to give it to Jordan Love because Jordan Love, as we saw in the playoffs last year, when he gets hot, oh boy, as you said, there's probably not a team in the NFC that can stop him. So I'm giving that to Jordan Love as
There's not a
well,
team in the
and
NFL.
yeah, and then I'm looking at like overall consistency, and like I said, the Eagles defense has been
I was
playing
about to say,
better.
I think overall consistency, there is a baseline that you get from Jalen Hurts, especially with the rushing upside, that I don't think you get from Jordan Love every week. That's kind of your argument. That at least that's going to be my argument for the Eagles. There is a baseline the Eagles are hitting every week, and you see it every week.
I feel like that's probably true, although when they are missing weapons, and that's a concern. Like if, for example, in a playoff game, AJ Brown goes down, as I said, that Eagles offense goes to the trash immediately. And I feel like with the Green Bay Packers, the pieces are more easily replaced. I feel like they have enough depth at the wide receiver in which Jaden Reed can get hurt, and they are still playing good football. I mean, we've seen games that they have lost Jordan Love. Malik Willis comes in, the offense isn't as high powered, but it's still effective enough and efficient enough in which they can actually move the football and get the wins necessary. So I feel like overall, sure, the Eagles are probably a bit more consistent, but when faced with adversity, I feel like the Green Bay Packers lead with that a bit better. And that's at the end of the day, that's probably coaching. That's where it comes down to. So I feel like the Packers are a better team here than the Philadelphia Eagles. So hey, spoiler alert: the Eagles are 6th, the Packers are 5th. So they're back to back. I've given you my 2 teams here, the 6th and the 5th. I made the argument for both. I've compared them both. So you have the floor for 5th and 4th, I guess.
5 is the Baltimore Ravens for me.
Oh boy, you're way too low on the Ravens. I'll tell you that
Oh
much
my,
right now.
this guy! I'm way too low on the Ravens. really the concerning thing for me is the Ravens defense. I've seen it get diced up a little more than I'm happy seeing, especially when you look at the other teams that are ahead on this list. I the kind of argument is of course the Ravens offense. How do you stop it? You have to stop Derrick Henry from running. You have to stop Lamar Jackson from running, and then of course you have the weapons. Um, they traded for Deontay Johnson, but by the way, Alex, spoiler alert: Deontay Johnson is not the second best wide receiver on this team. The second best wide receiver on this team is actually
It's Alan Wallens.
Rashad Bateman, and
Oh,
of
you're no
course,
fun.
and of course, they have Zay Flowers. So it's a team that can score 30 in a given day, but it's also a team that can give up. We just saw it with the Bengals. They gave up 34 points to a T Higgins less Cincinnati Bengals. So just for that, there's just something that tells me that they're going to get knocked out early. There's just something that tells me they're getting knocked out early. We'll see.
I feel like this team is probably better than last year's team.
No, no way.
The Ravens, but
No
we'll
way.
get in there when we'll get in there. I'm going to have them higher. So spoiler alert on that. I'm noticing something here on your side which I wasn't expecting. But go on because it feels like you're missing a team.
I'm missing a
That
team.
you're missing a team that you probably really love because I don't really see you're leaving out any of the other teams here. You're probably even missing more than one.
Oh no, I am.
But we'll
If
see.
you're talking about my beloved 49ers, they are not here.
Oh, okay. So that's a not take. For those of you who've been following, like Angelo is a loving San Francisco 49ers. I don't
Oh,
know
don't
if he's a
worry. You're gonna
fan or
blink. If
isn't.
they keep winning, you're gonna blink and they're gonna be in the top three real fast.
Oh boy. I'll see. Okay, give me your fourth as well, because I already gave you my fifth, so you need to be ahead again.
Okay. My fourth is the Buffalo Bills. I'm waiting for the
Jesus.
response.
No response. That's where they are as well for me.
Okay,
So,
that's what they.
spoiler alert. I guess we can make the argument 50-50. I feel like you're putting the Eagles in the top three. It's just asinine, but we're back to where we were last year. So,
The Eagles in the top three just had.
it is. It
So
is.
I didn't give James Cook, Josh Allen, and the Buffalo Bills enough credit because I thought with how much they just let walk away that we would see huge regression from them. And we haven't. That's not even the biggest. The biggest losses were on the defense, and the defense is playing. I can't say elite, but I can't say bad. They're playing good. It's just they're just a surprising team to me. I do have faith in Josh Allen, and I know this is going to be a bit hypocritical when we get to the Kansas City Chiefs, but it seems like Josh Allen just turns the ball over at the worst possible moments. And when we get to the Chief, it feels like Patrick Mahomes' turnovers don't matter at the end of the game. But that's kind of where it is. I've seen them fold too many times to be like, yeah, this is gonna be the team that usurps the Chiefs this year.
Hmm. Yes, so I'm on the same page as you in terms of the Bills being the fourth best team for me. I am conflicted though, because I feel like they are one of those teams that I'm assuming this game versus the Chiefs will be close. But if it isn't close, then I'm looking at the games that they've had
Free fall.
versus the
Free
Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, it's just going to be free fall. Because that Ravens game still is in my
fall.
mind.
Where they
And
got
one of the things
shellacked?
that I've
Yeah.
mentioned, yeah, where they got shellacked. And one of the things that I've mentioned is adversity. How do you deal with adversity? That is really important for me in the playoffs because you look at teams that have previously done better in the NFL in the playoffs, and it's like you're looking at, for example, you remember that Chiefs team that went face to face versus the Houston Texans, the Deshaun Watson Houston Texans, and the Texans were
With
up
Alex Smith and all them.
massively.
Yeah.
Was it with Alex Smith? Wasn't it with Mahomes? Like first year of Mahomes or second?
With say again, who was the quarterback for the Houston Texans?
That was Watson.
No, there's no way that Watson and Mahomes started the same year. It's
Watson versus Mahomes. Yeah, I think it was like in 2000. Yeah, 2019, wasn't it?
it
The
was, but
playoffs.
Mahomes sat his first year.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying like that game that the Texans and the Chiefs went head to head in the divisional round, in which the Texans were up for quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken, at the half, and then Mahomes made that comeback. And it's just like how you deal with adversity is where I care. It's what really moves the needle here for me. And it's like the teams that I feel like I'm trying to find out the final score of that game.
It was.
Um,
I'm looking at it right now. It was fucking 51-31.
but how was it at halftime? Because I'm trying to figure out if that's the game that I'm thinking about. Because I think that
14
it
nothing
was.
Texans, 21
Yeah.
nothing Texans, 24 nothing Texans, 24-7, 24-14, 24-21. They were losing at halftime.
Yeah. That's
20
the game that I'm
They
remembering.
started 24-7, 24 nothing, and they were down 24-28 at halftime. Oh my
Yeah, and
god.
that's exactly what I'm saying. It's that type of team is where I put them in a tier below, which is the top three tier, which is just like, can you be punched in the mouth and stand up and just get that win? Because I've seen the Buffalo Bills be punched in the mouth by the Baltimore Ravens a few weeks ago, and you watch that game and it's like they get punched in the mouth and then they do not respond accordingly because then they just the mistakes start to pile up and they lose that game. That is just a downward spiral. I remember that game being like close-ish at the half. They were only down like by three scores, 20 something, 20 nothing if I'm not mistaken.
Halftime, no, it was
And
24-28 at
no,
half.
no, 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 no. The Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. I
Oh,
remember the
okay,
Bills
okay,
only
okay.
being down by like two, three scores at the half, and then I remember that game very vividly. I mentioned it here, in which they had like a minute and 40 something, and instead of three timeouts, and instead of just trying to pick up some yardage, try to get some points before the half, they just went ahead and took three step backs and threw the ball deep three times. Almost had a disastrous interception in there, and it just piled on from there. And it really felt like that's when they lost the game, not getting a single point in the first half. And I don't think this Buffalo team will lead well with adversity when it comes their way. So that's why, therefore, they're right outside of the best tier for me. The top three, it's a tier by themselves. Because again, this Buffalo Bills team, this can be a team that it's not even inside of my top 10 next week, if the game versus the Chiefs goes bad.
So number 3 for me,
Yeah.
it's the Detroit. Nah, it's the Eagles. It's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay. Almost got me. You
What
almost
would
got
you
me.
have done? What would you have done?
I, I might have just left. I don't know. We'll have to
I might.
see.
So the Philadelphia Eagles are number 3 for me. And like I was saying, the argument over the Packers for the Eagles for me, as far as Jalen Hurts versus Jordan Love, is you do get the highs with Jordan Love, but again, you get that baseline with Jalen Hurts. He feels comfortable. He feels safe. Like you said, the defense is playing better. The offense, when it's healthy, has weapons for days that you can't deal with. Well, we talk about a Devonta Smith. We talk about a AJ Brown. We talk about a Saquon Barkley, and we forget they also have Dallas Goddard there, who's a very good tight end. So it's a hard team to stop. And when the defense is clicking, again, they feel like a team that could win the NFC. Like I said, there's like 4 or 5 NFC teams that I could see in the Super Bowl representing the NFC. I think the Eagles have one of the better shots. I think them or the Lions do. But yeah, no, I really like the Eagles number 3.
And yeah, I made my point about the Eagles. I just can't get behind that team. Like in the playoffs when it matters. Now, given I think their team than last year, I don't see the same weaknesses. That's why they're still inside of the top 10. Like last year, they were consistently either outside or like right at 10 because I didn't trust them whatsoever. Now I feel like they're a better team than that, but it's still like it's a team that until I see them succeed in the big stage, I can't. I still think like the season in which they went to the Super Bowl was a fluke because they had the Avengers, basically. And yeah, Sirianni, can't trust him whatsoever. So he's not even in the same realm here. At 3 here, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Easy enough. I feel like they're well coached. I feel like the defense versus the run, they're very stout. Versus the pass, I know they have a lot of deficiencies right now. But if you can basically shut down the run in the playoffs, you're already doing something good. And I think like they're very good at that. Plus, they're very good at running the balls themselves. They're probably going to have like over 2,000 yards rushing as a team in the regular season. So I feel like running wise, I feel like they're great at that. The weapons, I still feel like they can probably pass the ball a bit more. But at the end of the day, I feel like they pass the ball effectively enough to the point in which, like, yeah, they do not have great numbers, but it's more because, like, they just distribute the wealth by a few people. They do not throw the ball a lot because they like to run the ball. And they get up big. And I feel like when they get up big and you know how to run the ball and you can run the ball, that's just too big of an advantage there. And you're just cruising after that. So I like them as a top 3 team. Now, the big question is, like, can they succeed in the big stage? And so far, they haven't been able to. When the playoffs come, it just feels like something is wrong with them. But I feel like with Derrick Henry, this can probably change a bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a hard question to ask. How do you beat Lamar Jackson, the weapons, and Derrick Henry? How do you stop them all? I
I don't
think the
think.
answer is, and we've seen this happen in a game or two, is the Ravens stop themselves, and
Yeah,
that's
and that's
kind
been
of
the
what's going
case.
to have to happen. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's been the case in the playoffs, especially. It's like they get in there. That's like Lamar has 2 MVPs right now. They get in there. They know how to get in there hot. But when they get in the playoffs, it just sort of deflates because they do not seem to have that DNA. I'm expecting that it changes this year, with the weapons being a bit better, with them having finally a good like top what 5 running back in the league. Um, it just gets a bit better. They're coached a bit better. Now they need to fix up the defense somewhat. Like the Chiefs have won with worse defense because the Chiefs have won with defenses that couldn't stop either the pass or the throw or the run. So the Baltimore Ravens are a bit more Jesus Christ are a bit more well suited for that because they do know how to stop one side of one part of the offense well enough. But it's still like in the playoffs, how will they do? And that's the question that I'm missing an answer for right now.
that's fair. All right, so my number 2 is the Detroit Lions. I think Jared Goff's play is very concerning. If I'm being completely honest with you, but with that said, there's just a feel to this Lions team that I haven't felt, especially not for the Lions. They just feel like no matter what happens, they're gonna pull out the wins. Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions or whatever. They're still in the game. Like the run game is deadly. The defense is even with the injuries, the defense is still playing well. They just play hard, and there's just something that feels good about rooting for the Lions this year. I'm not gonna lie. Feels better than the room for the Chiefs. That's for damn sure.
100% agreed. Yeah, we have the same top 2. But yeah, Lions are here as well for me at 2. And at the end of the day, it really is just consistency, right? Like consistency in how you can face adversity. And it's a thing that they've shown me, and that's why they are number 2 here. As I said, I was very impressed with the win versus Houston this past week. It's just like I was not expecting them to do this well versus adversity. And they went in there, they got punched in the mouth, and much like Dan Campbell, I was watching back the press conference when he was first announced, and it's just like he wanted a team that could get punched in the mouth, go down, bite a bit of a kneecap off when they were going up, get punched in the mouth again, go down while you're getting up, bite another chunk of the kneecap off, and eventually there's only one team going to be standing there, and it's the Detroit Lions. And this is being molded. This is a team that's being molded to their head coach. It feels like this has been a long time coming for the Detroit Lions fan, and for the Lions in general. It's an head coach that is giving them life right now, and he's being able to manage the team to his own personality, and the players gravitate towards that. And the team just has this weird, like, quote unquote aura, as people are saying right now, to them. It just feels very much like it. They are just a team. Like now they have weapons that are also a bit better. Amon Ra is still there. Sam Laporte is still there. The duo of running backs is still there. But last year, the thing that was missing was a wide receiver too. And right now, JMO is stepping up. He's playing a bit better as wide receiver too. And they have some sort of depth behind that. Tim Patrick is now there. Tim Patrick is a very good wide receiver, but has had shit luck in terms of injuries that he's had to face in back-to-back seasons. Now he's there. Now he's healthy. He's playing a decent role for them there. And this just feels like a team that is well constructed and a coach that has a good mentality about this game, that has a good mentality on how to win, how to deal with adversity. And at the end of the day, that's what matters in the playoffs. And yeah, I really like this Lions team. I feel like it's if thing goes right for them, I feel like they'll be in the Super Bowl right now because again, they get punched in the mouth, they get back up, and they bite a chunk out of you. And eventually, they're the only ones that are going to be coming back up. So it doesn't matter if they're down 20 at the half, 25 at the half, 30 at the half. They have that mentality that it's we can still win this. It reminds me a whole lot about my soccer team here in Portugal because we were bad for quite a while, for like 20 years. We were one of the main teams here for like since the championship was started. But for like 20 years, we never won a title. Then a coach came in that instilled the mentality of like we're going to fuck shit up until we get a win. And if we beat them like 10-0, we're going to be pissed off that we didn't beat them by like 12 or 13 because that's like the mentality that we needed, that we were lacking for like 20 years. And he came in, he just instilled that mentality to the players, to the club. We won like 2 titles in the 3.5 years basically that he was in here. He's not leaving. He's going to Manchester United. Um, but yeah, that's just the type of coach that Detroit got as well. So I feel like they're fairly similar. Plus, both teams are like a lion in the logo. So that's fun enough. Or maybe I should be a Detroit Lions fan at the end of the day.
Be better than being a Seahawks fan.
Hey, it is what it is now. If I jump now, it would be way too bandwagon. So, but I do like them quite a bit. It's the next hat that I need to buy. Unless I'm cursing them, because this past off season I got a Colts hat and I got a Chicago Bears hat. So I don't know, man. Maybe I need to stop buying hats.
Yeah, I need to stop buying merchandise and cursing franchises. Um, the number one is the Chiefs. I don't know how they're like your take from last year about the Eagles. They're winning, but it doesn't feel. You can apply that to the Chiefs. I don't understand how they're 9-0. Couldn't tell you, but they are. So, gotta respect it. It I don't know. It sort of feels like this is their year, but at the same time, if they got bounced, I wouldn't be surprised. With the way they're playing, I wouldn't be surprised. But the playoffs are going to come. Patrick Mahomes is going to play perfect again, and everything will be fine because this is Patrick Mahomes' world, and we're just living in it.
They are the Golden State Warriors when they got Kevin Durant. It's just like it doesn't feel like it matters. It seems like when they need a play, they get a play, but they really don't matter on what's happening in the regular season. They're clearly like there's things in there. For example, Kelsey looking washed to start the season, and now he's getting like 14 catches for 100 yards on like a weekly basis. It just feels like they were completely saving some of those assets to later in the season to be fresh later in the season, and they're not putting up 100% right now. I wouldn't be shocked if we're sitting here saying all of this, and it is true. Like you watch them play, and they do not look like the Chiefs that we know and love, that quote unquote love. Some people would love them, but they do not look like the Chiefs. But it feels like the difference between them and the Eagles from last year is that we've seen them doing this. We've seen them not doing this, being this like weird in the regular season, but we've seen them in the big stage,
Sloppy.
and
They're
we've
just
seen
sloppy.
them, yeah, but we've seen them in the big stage, and we've seen them step up when needed, and we know that they have a good head coach, and those are like the main differences. And now they actually have a good defense. It has been a bit worse the past few weeks, but it's still like a top 10 defense in the league. I just feel like I wouldn't be surprised if they come in there versus the Bills this week and they dismantle the Bills. And everyone will be like, okay, this is not this KC team that we've seen and whatnot. And like they looked completely like they weren't really in it for a while. And it's just like, I don't think it matters. I feel like they're completely saving themselves for the big games, for the playoffs. They're stepping it up when needed and like versus the shit team. That's what I said. I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, next week they face the Carolina Panthers and it's a 3 point game that they need to win with like a field goal. And this week they dismantle the Bills. Like, I wouldn't be surprised with that. It just feels like a team that everything can go right for them because they're great. And when they need, they will turn up the heat and they'll get the points. They'll score the points. Hopkins is getting integrated in that offense. Defense is playing great. Isaiah Pacheco is probably going to be back after all. It looks like they have activated him. It's practice window, that is. But Andy Reid has said that he doesn't feel like he's going to be ready to play this week, but he's going to be back eventually. So yeah, they are the number one team. They are undefeated. Maybe they shouldn't be undefeated, but at the end of the day, they've made the plays necessary to win the games. It's the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team.
That's what I got. That's my take.
Right? That's it. That's the power rankings, and that's probably the show. Right? We've been at this for like almost 2 hours now. Hour and
Over
45.
2 hours.
Over two
No,
hours for sure.
almost 2 hours. You're right. You're not right. You're right.
Ah, okay. Okay. You're probably like 10 minutes short of 2 hours. So. Do you have anything else to add, or do you also think like this is probably a good enough
This
amount
is
of
the
time?
ending, buddy.
This is the ending. So, guys, thank you very much for sticking up this long. If you have, if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, if you're listening on the Spotify app, wherever really you listen to your podcast, just make sure to leave us a 5-star review, please. Leave us a comment. Turn on the auto downloads. Subscribe to the show. The download is by far the most important part, I would say, because you will get the show immediately as it drops. Don't need to bother when it comes out, when is it going to come out, constantly checking if it's in your feed already. No, you skip all of that, and as soon as it comes out, it's in your downloads. So, and it helps us out quite a bit as well. So that's great. For the YouTube, you know what you guys been doing. Just make sure to subscribe, like all of those good things that are the norm by now. So yeah, this is coming out on a Saturday. Enjoy your Saturday. Get ready for football. There's no early games this week. The international games are done. So good old 1 p.m. start for everyone in there in the Americas. If you're listening from Portugal, it starts at 6 p.m., of course. So yeah, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the NFL. And we'll be back next week for more fantasy football show, for more predictions, and for more just rants in general. So yeah, really appreciate it, guys. Talk to you next week.
Peace. Nope. My thing wasn't working.